You're at the wrong wedding, but I'll marry you instead.
Picture this. You burst into a wedding to save your brother. Your heart pounding, rain-soaked and desperate, only to realize you're at the wrong ceremony. And the groom? He's not just any groom. He's a Korean mafia boss with a reputation that makes grown men nervous. And instead of being angry, he looks at you like you're the most interesting thing that's happened to him in years. Then he says, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're at the wrong wedding, but you're marrying me instead." A wave of laughter rippled through the room. Cameras flash. By morning, you're a meme. By afternoon, you're unemployed. By evening, you're evicted. Your face is everywhere, and suddenly everyone remembers who your father was. The mob accountant who vanished with secrets worth killing for. Then he shows up at your door. The same man who ruined your life with just 7 words. But this time, he's not smiling. He's offering protection. A deal. A way to find your missing brother. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to stop running from a past that's been chasing you for a decade. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love connecting with my viewers around the world. And if you want to see how a wrong turn can lead to the right person, make sure you subscribe. Jae Park's hands trembled against the steering wheel as she navigated Seoul's evening traffic. The late autumn rain pelted her windshield, the wipers working overtime to clear her view. Neon signs blurred through the water streaming down the glass. Pinks, blues, electric greens turning the city into an impressionist painting she had no time to appreciate. Her phone lit up again in the cup holder. Another unknown number. That made 8 calls in the last 20 minutes. She couldn't answer. Not now. Not when every second counted. "Please let me make it in time," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of rain drumming on the roof. "Please, Minjun. Just hold on." The frantic phone call from her younger brother still echoed in her ears. She'd been closing up the coffee shop, wiping down tables and humming along to the radio, when her phone had buzzed. The moment she'd heard Minjun's voice, tight with panic, breaking on every other word, her entire world had tilted. "Nuna, I'm at Hanul Cathedral. They're making me marry someone. I don't want this. I can't. Please, you have to stop it. Please." Then the line had gone dead. Jie had grabbed her keys and run. No coat. No plan. Just pure, desperate love for the only family she had left. She knew exactly what this was about. Minjun had gotten mixed up with the wrong people 6 months ago. Borrowed money from someone who smiled with too many teeth and made promises that sounded too good to be true. She'd warned him. God, she'd warned him so many times. But her little brother had always been a dreamer, always believed the best in people, even when the worst was staring him in the face. A taxi honked as Ji cut across 2 lanes, her small sedan barely squeezing through a gap in traffic. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. Hanul Cathedral. She'd looked it up on her phone at a red light, a massive Gothic structure in Gangnam where Seoul's elite held their ceremonies. The kind of place that required invitations printed on paper that probably cost more than her weekly paycheck. The kind of place a barista from Hongdae had no business entering. But none of that mattered. Minjun was her responsibility. Had been ever since their father disappeared 10 years ago, leaving behind nothing but whispers, rumors, and a legacy of shame. Jie had been 18, Minjun barely 8. She'd raised him in the shadow of their father's reputation, always moving, always hiding, always making sure the name Park never drew the wrong kind of attention. She'd built them a quiet life. Invisible. Safe. And now it was all crumbling because Minjun couldn't stay away from trouble. No. Jie's jaw tightened. Not his fault. Never his fault. He's just a kid who needed a father and got a ghost instead. The cathedral's spires pierced the darkening sky ahead, illuminated by spotlights that made them glow against the storm clouds. Jie's stomach dropped. The parking lot was packed with luxury vehicles. Sleek black sedans and sports cars that belonged in magazines, not in her world. She pulled into the first spot she could find, not caring that she was probably blocking someone in. Her sneakers hit the wet pavement before she'd fully turned off the engine. Rain immediately soaked through her work shirt, the faded black polo with Café Dalgona embroidered over the pocket. Her hair, hastily pulled into a bun during her shift, was already coming loose, damp strands sticking to her neck and forehead. "I look ridiculous," some distant part of her mind whispered. "Everyone in there is going to take one look at you and know you don't belong." But Minjun's voice drowned out every doubt. "Please, Nuna. You have to stop it." The cathedral doors loomed before her, enormous wooden barriers carved with angels and saints, the kind of craftsmanship that spoke of old money and older power. Through the thick wood, she could hear it. The wedding march. Rich, triumphant organ music that meant she was already too late. No, G gasped, breaking into a run. No, no, no. She hit the doors with both hands, pushing with every ounce of strength her 5'4" frame possessed. For a terrifying second, they didn't budge. Then, with a groan of protesting hinges, they swung inward. The sound that erupted was like thunder. Boom. The doors slammed against the interior walls. The organ music cut off mid-note, and every single person in the packed cathedral turned to stare. G stood frozen in the entrance, chest heaving, rain dripping from her hair onto marble floors so polished they reflected the chandelier light like mirrors. The cathedral was enormous. Endless rows of guests dressed in designer suits and evening gowns, their jewelry catching the light from dozens of candles that lined the aisle. But it was the altar that made her blood run cold. Beneath an archway dripping with white orchids and silk ribbons stood a man who definitely wasn't her brother. He was tall, easily 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out a tailored black suit perfectly. His hair was styled back, revealing a face that looked like it had been carved by someone who understood both beauty and cruelty. Tattoos crept up from his collar, intricate designs that disappeared beneath the expensive fabric, the word sinner visible across his eyebrow in elegant script, a small teardrop beneath his left eye, and his eyes, dark, unblinking, fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. She knew that face. Everyone in Seoul knew that face. Jang Woo-sik, the Ice King, heir to the Black Phoenix Syndicate. The kind of man mothers warned their children about, the kind of name that made room in conversation, the kind of power that didn't ask, it took. This wasn't Minjun's wedding. This was something far, far worse. But Ji's mouth was already open, her desperation already overriding common sense. "Stop the wedding!" she shouted, her voice cracking on the last word. The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. Except Woo-sik. He tilted his head slightly, studying her the way someone might examine an unexpected painting in a gallery. Curious, intrigued, utterly unafraid. Then his lips curved into a smile that sent ice down Ji's spine. He stepped away from the altar with the fluid grace of a predator, each footstep echoing in the cavernous space. The guests parted like water, and Ji could see phones rising, cameras turning, red recording lights blinking in the dimness. Run, her instincts screamed. Run now while you still can. But her feet wouldn't move. Woo-sik stopped 3 feet away from her. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Not just because of his size or the tattoos or the reputation, but because of the way he looked at her. Like he could see straight through her rain-soaked clothes and trembling hands to something deeper. Something she'd spent 10 years trying to hide. "You're at the wrong wedding," he said, his voice low and smooth, carrying effortlessly through the silent cathedral. Ji's breath caught. She should apologize. Should bow. Should back away slowly and pray he'd let her leave with her life intact. But then Woo-sik reached out, his hand moving with deliberate slowness, and his fingers closed around her wrist. Not roughly, almost gently, but with an unmistakable possession that made her pulse jump. His next words were loud enough for every guest, every camera, every witness to hear. "But you're marrying me instead." The cathedral exploded with sound, gasps, laughter, the rapid-fire click of phone cameras. Ji's vision swam. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't real. But Woo-sik's hand was solid and warm around her wrist, his smile sharp as broken glass. And somewhere in the crowd, someone was already typing frantically on their phone. Already posting. Already making her face the most viral thing in Seoul. And Ji Park, who had spent 10 years staying invisible, had just been dragged into the spotlight by the one man in Korea you never, ever wanted to notice you. Ji woke to the sound of her phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. For one blissful, disoriented moment, she thought it had all been a nightmare. The cathedral. The tattooed Mafia boss. The words that had turned her life into a spectacle. Just a stressed dream brought on by too much coffee and not enough sleep. Then she opened her eyes and saw her phone screen glowing on the floor, notification after notification flooding in so fast the device was practically having a seizure. Her stomach dropped. She grabbed the phone with shaking hands, squinting at the screen. The first thing she saw was a text from her coworker Hannah. "OMG Jai, are you okay? You're everywhere." Everywhere. Ji opened her social media app and felt the room tilt. The top trending topic in South Korea wasn't a celebrity scandal or political news. It was her face. #WrongWeddingGirl. The video had been viewed 47 million times. 47 million. Someone had caught the entire thing in crystal clear HD. Her soaking wet entrance, her desperate shout, and worst of all, the moment Jang Woo-sik took her wrist and declared she was marrying him instead. The comments section was a nightmare. Who is this random girl LMAO? She looks like she showed up to the wrong century. Wait, isn't that Park Jae? The mob accountant's daughter? Jae's blood turned to ice. No. That name was buried. That identity was dead. She'd spent a decade making sure no one connected her to her father's legacy. But now, amateur internet detectives were digging through old news articles, posting side-by-side photos of her and her father from 10 years ago. Someone had even found her high school yearbook picture. Park Jae, daughter of Park Sung-min, the accountant who embezzled millions from the Busan syndicate before disappearing. Is she targeting Jang Woo-sik next? Is this a revenge plot? Her phone rang. Mr. Cho from Cafe Dalgona. Jae. His voice was tight, uncomfortable. I'm sorry, but I can't have you working here anymore. Customers have been calling all morning. Some of them, they sound scared. I have a family to protect. The line went dead before she could respond. She sat there, staring at nothing, feeling her carefully constructed life crumbling like sand through her fingers. A knock at her door made her jump. For a wild second, she hoped it was Min Jun, that he'd explain everything, that they'd figure this out together like they always did. But when she opened the door, it was her landlord, Mrs. Kim, holding an envelope with an expression that somehow managed to be both apologetic and relieved. I'm terminating your lease effective immediately, the older woman said, not meeting Ji's eyes. You have until tomorrow evening to vacate. Mrs. Kim, please. I have other tenants to think about. People are already gathering outside, taking pictures of the building. I can't have that kind of attention here. I'm sorry. Another door closing in her face. Ji stumbled back into her tiny apartment and immediately called Min Jun. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. And again. 7 times before she finally left a message, her voice breaking. Min Jun, where are you? I went to save you, but you weren't. Please call me back. Please. I need to know you're okay. Her phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. She almost didn't open it. She wished she hadn't. The image showed Min Jun, unconscious or asleep, slumped in a chair. The message below was written in blunt, unforgiving text. Your father knew where the ledger was. So do you. You have 48 hours to remember. Or your brother forgets how to breathe. Ji's hands went numb. The phone clattered to the floor. She didn't know where any ledger was. Didn't know what secrets her father had taken when he vanished. But whoever sent this message didn't care about the truth. They only cared about what they believed. She was still staring at the screen when someone knocked again. Louder this time. More insistent. I said I'll be out by tomorrow, she shouted, anger finally breaking through the shock. Open the door, Ms. Park. A male voice, smooth and calm. Unless you'd prefer I discuss your situation in the hallway where your neighbors can hear. Ji's breath caught. She knew that voice. She opened the door to find Jang Woo-sik standing in her dingy apartment corridor like a luxury car parked in a junkyard. He wore dark jeans and a black leather jacket today, more tattoos visible on his hands and neck. But somehow he still managed to look like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Behind him stood 2 massive men in suits, their presence making the narrow hallway feel claustrophobic. You, Jae breathed, and she didn't know if what she felt was relief or rage. You did this. You destroyed my life. Woo-sik's expression didn't change. May I come in? No. He stepped inside anyway, his guards remaining outside. Jae backed up instinctively as he closed the door behind him, his dark eyes sweeping over her cramped studio apartment. The second-hand furniture, the tiny kitchen, the single window overlooking an alley. I didn't destroy your life, he said quietly. I revealed it. There's a difference. Get out. You're in danger. Because of you. No. Woo-sik moved closer, and Jae was reminded uncomfortably of how tall he was, how much space he took up in her small world. Because of who you are, who your father was. I just accelerated the inevitable. Why? Her voice cracked. Why did you say that? Why did you claim I was marrying you? Something flickered in his eyes. Not quite regret, but close. Because the moment you burst through those doors, I saw 3 rival gang members reaching for their phones. They recognized you before I did. By the time you left that cathedral, you were already a target. Ji's knees felt weak. So you what? Made it worse. I made you mine publicly, Woo-sik corrected. In my world, that means protection. It means anyone who touches you answers to me. He paused, studying her face. There's a traitor in my organization. Someone who's been feeding information to my enemies for months. I haven't been able to identify them because they're careful, cautious. But you're an unknown variable. Claiming you forces their hand. They'll make a move, reveal themselves trying to use you. I'm bait, Jie whispered. You're leverage. There's a difference. She wanted to slap him, wanted to scream. But her phone was still on the floor showing Minjun's unconscious face, and reality was a cold, heavy weight in her chest. I have a deal for you, Woo-sik said. Stay close to me. Pretend to be my girlfriend. Play the role everyone already thinks you're playing. In exchange, I'll find your brother. I'll keep you alive. And when this is over, you can disappear properly this time. New identity. New life. Somewhere far from Seoul and everything that haunts you here. It was too much. Too fast. Jie shook her head, backing toward the window. No, I don't trust you. I don't trust any of this. I'll find Minjun myself and we'll. You'll what? Woo-sik's voice wasn't cruel, just devastatingly factual. You have no job. No home as of tomorrow. No allies. And whoever has your brother believes you know something worth killing for. How long do you think you'll last out there alone? I've survived worse. Have you? He tilted his head. Because from where I'm standing, you've been hiding. Survival and hiding aren't the same thing. The words hit harder than they should have. Jie opened her mouth to respond when her window exploded inward. Glass shattered everywhere. Jie screamed, throwing her arms up to protect her face. Something whistled past her ear and embedded itself in the wall behind her with a thunk that made her blood freeze. A knife. Someone had thrown a knife through her window. Get down. Woo-sik's voice was sharp, commanding. His hand closed around her arm, pulling her away from the window just as another blade came flying through. This one sparking off the metal door frame. More sounds outside, shouts, running footsteps, the heavy thud of Woo-sik's guards engaging someone in the hallway. Woo-sik positioned himself between Jie and the window, his body a wall of muscle and ink and absolute certainty. When another knife came through, aimed directly at where Jie was standing, he caught it midair, fingers closing around the blade without flinching. Blood dripped from his palm. Still think you'll survive alone? He asked, not looking at her, his attention fixed on the window. Jie's whole body was shaking. She could hear more commotion outside. Then suddenly everything went quiet. One of Woo-sik's guards appeared in the doorway. Perimeter secure, sir. 2 hostiles down. 1 escaped. Woo-sik finally turned to look at Jie. His expression was still calm, but there was something in his eyes now. Something almost like concern. The deal, he said quietly. Do we have one? Jie looked at the knives embedded in her wall. At the blood dripping from his hand. At her phone on the floor showing her unconscious brother. She thought about her father, who'd tried to run and disappeared instead. About Minjun, who needed her. About the fact that she'd been hiding for 10 years, and all it had taken was one wrong door to bring everything crashing down. Maybe Woo-sik was right. Maybe survival and hiding weren't the same thing. And maybe, just this once, she needed to stop running toward danger and start standing in it. Fine, she whispered. I'll stay close. I'll play your girlfriend. But you will find my brother. You'll keep him safe. That's not negotiable. Woo-sik's smile was small, barely there. I wouldn't expect anything less. He held out his non-bleeding hand to her. An invitation, a promise, a point of no return. Jie took it. And just like that, the barista who'd spent a decade invisible stepped into the light beside the man everyone feared. Woo-sik's estate wasn't what Jie expected. She'd imagined something dark and imposing. All black marble and cold steel, the kind of place that screamed criminal empire. Instead, the SUV pulled through gates that opened onto grounds that looked almost peaceful. Traditional Korean architecture blended with modern glass and stone. Gardens with carefully pruned trees lined the driveway. If you ignored the armed guards stationed every 50 meters and the security cameras tracking their approach, it could almost pass for a luxury resort. Almost. This is home, Woo-sik said as the vehicle stopped in front of the main entrance. He'd been quiet during the drive, his hand still wrapped in the makeshift bandage Jie had insisted on applying before they left her apartment. You'll have your own room, your own space. But we need to be seen together regularly, meals, public areas. The staff will talk. That's the point. Jie nodded, clutching the single bag she'd packed. Everything she owned fit into one duffel bag. Somehow that felt pathetic in the face of all this wealth. The front door opened before they reached it, revealing a man who made Woo-sik's guards look small. He was easily 6'4", built like he'd been carved from granite, with a scar running from his left eyebrow down to his jaw. His eyes locked onto Jae with all the warmth of a winter storm. "This is Kang Do-hyun," Woo-sik introduced. "Head of security." "Do-hyun, this is." "I know who she is." Do-hyun's voice was gravel and distrust. "The girl who crashed the wedding. The accountant's daughter. The complication." "Do-hyun." Woo-sik's tone carried a warning. "With respect, boss, bringing her here is a mistake. We don't know her loyalties. Don't know what she wants. For all we know, she's working with." "Enough." Woo-sik didn't raise his voice, but the temperature in the entryway seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Jae is under my protection. That makes her untouchable. Are we clear?" Do-hyun's jaw tightened, but he bowed his head. "Clear, sir." The tension was suffocating. Jae wanted to sink into the expensive marble floor and disappear. "Appa!" A bright voice cut through the awkwardness, and suddenly a young woman was rushing down the curved staircase, her smile genuine and warm. She couldn't have been more than 18 or 19, with long dark hair and eyes that sparkled with curiosity rather than suspicion. "You're back, and you brought. Oh my God, you're the girl from the video." "Haun." Woo-sik's voice softened in a way Jae hadn't heard before. "This is Jae. She'll be staying with us for a while." Haun bounced to a stop in front of Jae, studying her with unabashed interest. "You're much prettier in person. The video didn't do you justice." "I'm Haun, Woo-sik's sister. Don't let Do-hyun scare you. He's suspicious of everyone, even the delivery people. Last month he held the pizza guy at gunpoint for 20 minutes. He had the wrong address 3 times, Do-hyun muttered. It was his second day. Haun laughed, then grabbed Jae's hand. "Come on, I'll show you to your room." "Appa, you look exhausted. Go rest. I've got her." Before Jae could protest, she was being pulled up the stairs by a whirlwind of energy that felt almost normal in this surreal situation. The room Haun led her to was bigger than Jae's entire apartment had been. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens. A king-sized bed with silk sheets. A bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. It was too much. All of it was too much. "I know it's overwhelming," Haun said softly, reading her expression. "But Appa doesn't do things halfway. If you're under his protection, you get the best of everything." She paused at the doorway, her playful demeanor shifting to something more serious. "He's a good person, you know. Whatever you've heard about him. Most of it's not true. Or at least not the whole truth." Jae wanted to believe that. Needed to believe it, considering she'd just agreed to live with him. "Get settled," Haun continued. "Dinner's at 7. Appa always cooks on Wednesdays. It's one of his weird rules, says it keeps him grounded." She grinned. Fair warning, he's annoyingly good at it. Jae spent the afternoon unpacking her meager belongings and trying not to feel like an imposter in a palace. At 6:30, she ventured downstairs, following the scent of garlic and sesame oil to a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a cooking show. Woo-sik stood at the stove, his leather jacket replaced with a simple black t-shirt that showed off the full sleeves of tattoos on both arms. He was chopping vegetables with the precision of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. And for a moment, Jae just stood in the doorway, watching this feared mafia boss do something so strangely domestic. "You can come in," he said without turning around. "I don't bite. Your security chief might disagree. Do-hyun doesn't trust anyone. It's what makes him good at his job." Woo-sik glanced over his shoulder, and something in his expression softened when he saw her. "How's the room?" "It's big. Too big. I don't know if I'll ever get used to it." He was quiet for a moment, then gestured to the cutting board beside him. "Want to help? Or are you one of those people who can't cook?" Jae bristled at the challenge in his tone. "I worked in a cafe for 5 years. I can handle a knife." "Prove it." She found herself moving to the counter, taking the knife he offered, falling into the rhythm of chopping beside him. It felt oddly intimate, their shoulders occasionally brushing, the quiet sounds of cooking filling the space between them. "Your hand," Jae said, noticing the professional bandage that had replaced her makeshift one. "Did someone look at it?" "Haun patched me up. She's studying to be a doctor." Pride colored his voice. "Smart kid. Smarter than I ever was. She seems to adore you. She's the only family I have left." Woo-sik's knife stilled for a moment. "The only reason I'm still doing this." Jae wanted to ask what he meant, but something in his posture told her to wait, that the story would come when he was ready. They cooked in comfortable silence until Haun burst in, already talking about her day at university. Dinner was surprisingly normal. If you ignored Do-hyun standing guard by the door, glowering at Jae every time she spoke. Later that night, Jae couldn't sleep. She wandered the house, eventually finding herself in what looked like a study. Bookshelves lined the walls, and sitting in a leather chair by the window was Woo-sik, staring at a photograph she couldn't quite see. "Can't sleep either?" he asked without turning. "Too quiet. My apartment was always noisy. Traffic, neighbors fighting, street music." She moved closer. "What are you looking at?" He hesitated, then handed her the frame. It showed a younger Woo-sik, maybe 17, standing between a stern-looking man and a little girl who could only be Ha-eun. They were at some kind of festival, all three smiling. "My father," Woo-sik said quietly. 3 months before he was murdered. Ji's breath caught. "I'm sorry. Rival gang put a bullet in his head and left him in an alley like garbage. I was 19. Ha-eun was 9. The organization was ready to tear itself apart. Everyone fighting for power, for territory, for control." His voice was flat, emotionless, but Ji could hear the pain beneath it. "I didn't want this life. Wanted to go to university. Wanted to be normal. But if I didn't step up, didn't take control, Ha-eun would have been used as a pawn. Married off to form alliances. Or worse. So you became the Ice King. I became what I needed to be to keep her safe." He looked at Jae then, really looked at her. "You understand that, don't you? Doing things you never wanted to do, because someone you love needs you to." She thought of Minjun. Of bursting into that cathedral. Of agreeing to this insane arrangement. "Yeah," she whispered. "I understand." Woo-sik reached up, and Jae realized a tear had escaped down her cheek. His thumb brushed it away with surprising gentleness, his hand lingering against her face for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "We're not so different, you and I," he said softly. The moment stretched between them, fragile and electric. Ji's heart was doing something complicated in her chest, and she realized with a start that she was leaning toward him, that his eyes had dropped to her lips, that the space between them was shrinking. A gunshot cracked through the night. Both of them moved instantly. Woo-sik pushing Ji behind him, his body a shield as Do-hyun burst through the door. Perimeter breach, south gate. 2 hostiles down, third escaped into the gardens. Woo-sik's entire demeanor shifted. Gone was the man who'd cooked dinner and shared his pain. In his place stood the Ice King, cold and commanding. Lockdown protocol. Ha-eun, already secure in her room. Good. Woo-sik glanced back at Jae. "Stay here. Do-hyun will." "I'm not leaving you," Jae heard herself say. Something flashed in his eyes, surprise maybe, or something warmer. "Fine. But you stay behind me. Always." He took her hand, and Jae realized that somewhere in the past 12 hours, this place had stopped feeling like a prison. It had started feeling like home. And the man everyone feared had started feeling like safety. The attack came at dawn. Jae woke to the sound of automatic gunfire and Ha-eun screaming her name. She stumbled out of bed, disoriented, her heart already racing as explosions rocked the east wing of the estate. Smoke poured under her door, acrid and choking. "Jae!" Ha-eun burst into the room, her face pale with terror. "We have to get to the safe room. Now!" They ran through corridors filled with chaos. Guards shouting orders, return fire echoing off marble walls, the sharp smell of gunpowder mixing with something burning. Do-hyun appeared at an intersection, blood streaking down his temple, his gun raised. "Safe room. Both of you. Go." "Where's Woo-sik?" Jae demanded. "Fighting. Move." The safe room was in the basement, reinforced steel, surveillance monitors showing different angles of the estate. On screen, Jae watched Woo-sik and his men engaged in a firefight with at least 20 attackers. Her breath caught when she saw him take cover behind a pillar, returning fire with deadly precision. How did they get through the perimeter? Ha-eun whispered, clutching Jae's arm. Do-hyun's expression was granite. Someone gave them the access codes. Someone inside. The words hung in the air like poison. It took 40 minutes to push back the attack. 40 minutes of watching screens, flinching at every gunshot, praying that Woo-sik wouldn't be the next body to fall. When Do-hyun finally gave the all-clear, Ji's legs nearly gave out from relief. But the relief died the moment she stepped into the main hall. 8 of Woo-sik's men stood in a semicircle, their faces hard with suspicion. In the center, Woo-sik was listening to a man Jae recognized as his second-in-command, Kim Jae-sung. His expression was darker than she'd ever seen it. "Timing is too convenient," Jae-sung was saying. "She shows up, and suddenly we're compromised? Suddenly rival gangs know our schedules, our weak points. What are you suggesting?" Woo-sik's voice was dangerously quiet. "I'm suggesting we have a spy. And the newest addition to this household is the daughter of a man who betrayed the underworld once before. All eyes turned to Gae. That's insane, she breathed, stepping forward. I would never. Your father stole millions, another man interrupted. Sold information to our enemies. Why should you be any different? My father was innocent. So you say. Do-hyun's voice cut through the noise, and Ji's heart sank. Even he believed it. But the facts don't lie. Every attack, every breach, it started when you arrived. Woo-sik. Ji turned to him, pleading. Tell them. You know I didn't. But Woo-sik wasn't looking at her. He was staring at a tablet Jae-sung had handed him. His jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. What is it? She asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Messages. His voice was hollow. From your phone to an unknown number. Details about our security rotation. Guard positions. Haun's schedule. The room tilted. What? No. I never. Someone must have cloned my phone, planted those. Woo-sik, you can't actually believe. What I believe doesn't matter anymore. He finally looked at her, and the coldness in his eyes was worse than any weapon. The evidence is here. My men are dead. Haun was almost killed. And every trail leads back to you. I didn't do this. Ji's voice cracked. I wouldn't, God, I've been trying to find my brother, trying to survive, I would never. Maybe you didn't mean to. Woo-sik's words were like knives. Maybe whoever has Min-jun is using you, tracking you, feeding you information to feed us. Either way, the result is the same. So what? Tears burned Ji's eyes. You're just going to throw me out. Believe I'm a traitor because it's convenient. I'm trying to keep my family alive. Woo-sik's composure finally cracked, his voice rising. I took you in, protected you, put my sister in danger for you. And look where it got us. The words hit like physical blows. If I hadn't met you, he continued, his voice dropping back to that terrible, cold calm, none of this would be happening. My men would be alive. My home would be secure. Haun would be safe. Silence crashed down. Ji felt something break inside her chest, something that had just started to heal to hope. She looked around at the faces surrounding her. Do-hyun, vindicated in his suspicion. Jae-sung, satisfied that the threat had been identified. The other guards, hands resting on weapons, ready to remove her by force if necessary. And Woo-sik, staring at her like she was a stranger. Like the past weeks had meant nothing. Like she was just another problem to be eliminated. You're right, Jae said quietly, her voice steady even as tears streamed down her face. This is my fault. Not because I betrayed you. I swear to God I didn't. But because I'm poison. Everyone I touch, everyone I try to protect, they end up hurt. My father disappeared. Min-jun was taken. You were attacked. Maybe I'm just cursed to destroy everything good that comes near me. She turned toward the stairs, toward the room that had briefly felt like sanctuary. Where are you going? Woo-sik called after her. To pack. Isn't that what you want? For me to disappear. He didn't answer. That silence was answer enough. 20 minutes later, Ji walked out of the estate with the same duffel bag she'd arrived with. No one stopped her. Do-hyun watched from the security station, his expression unreadable. Haun wasn't anywhere to be seen. Probably being kept away, protected from the spy who'd infiltrated their home. The gates closed behind her with a finality that felt like a coffin lid. Ji walked until her feet ached, until the estate was far behind her, until the sun began to set over Seoul's skyline. She had nowhere to go. No money except the small amount of cash in her pocket. No friends who hadn't already cut ties after the viral disaster. She was alone. Completely, devastatingly alone. She ended up in a 24-hour convenience store, buying instant ramen with trembling hands. Sitting on the curb outside because even spending money on a PC bang felt like too much luxury for someone who ruined everything she touched. If I hadn't met you, none of this would be happening. The words played on repeat in her mind, each repetition driving the knife deeper. Maybe he was right. Maybe she should have stayed invisible. Should have let Min-jun handle his own problems. Should have never burst through those cathedral doors and crashed into Jang Woo-sik's life like a wrecking ball. Her phone buzzed. For one desperate second, she hoped it was Woo-sik. Hoped he'd realized his mistake. It was a news alert. Mafia boss's girlfriend exposed as spy. Black Phoenix syndicate in chaos. The article featured screenshots of those planted messages, photos of the attack aftermath, and speculation about whether GAE was working for rival gangs or planning something even more sinister. The comment section was worse than before. I knew she was sketchy from the start. Like father, like daughter, both traitors. Woo-sik should have killed her on sight. Ji's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. Meanwhile, in the ruins of his study, Woo-sik stood surrounded by debris from the attack. His knuckles were bleeding from where he'd punched the wall. Once, twice, until Do-hyun had physically restrained him. "You did what you had to," Do-hyun said quietly. "To protect Ha-eun. To protect us all." But the words felt hollow. Woo-sik's eyes fell on a damaged filing cabinet, its lock blown off during the attack. Papers had spilled across the floor. Old documents his father had kept. Things Woo-sik had never bothered going through because looking at his father's handwriting hurt too much. One folder caught his attention. The label read, Park Sung-min, Busan Incident. His stomach dropped. With shaking hands, Woo-sik opened the folder. Inside were ledgers, transaction records, and a letter in his father's handwriting. As he read, the floor seemed to disappear beneath him. Park Sung-min discovered discrepancies in the Busan operation. He found evidence that I had been skimming funds, laundering money through offshore accounts. He threatened to expose me to the other families. I couldn't let that happen. I framed him for the theft. Made it look like he'd stolen millions and run. The other families believed it. They hunted him. By the time they found him, I made sure he couldn't tell the truth. JSW. The letter was dated 3 days before Park Sung-min's disappearance. 3 days before Jae lost her father. "Boss!" Do-hyun's voice came from far away. "What is it?" Woo-sik couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The evidence was right here, in his father's own handwriting. Confession to murder, to framing an innocent man, to destroying a family. Ji's family. My father was innocent, she'd said. Over and over, she'd insisted. And he hadn't believed her. More documents fell from the folder, surveillance photos, witness reports that had been suppressed, evidence that Park Sung-min had actually been trying to protect the organization from corruption. Evidence that Woo-sik's own father had killed a good man to save his own reputation. And Woo-sik had just accused that man's daughter of being a traitor. Had thrown her out. Had told her everything bad in his life was her fault. "Oh God," he whispered. "What have I done?" His phone was in his hand before conscious thought caught up, dialing her number. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. Voicemail. He tried again. 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 Nothing. "Find her," Woo-sik ordered, his voice raw. "Find Jae. Now. Bring her back. Boss, if she really is." "She's not." The words exploded out of him. "She's innocent. She was always innocent. Just like her father. And his voice broke. "I just destroyed the only person who ever looked at me and saw something worth saving." Do-hyun's expression shifted from suspicion to horror as the realization set in. "I'll mobilize everyone. We'll search every." It might already be too late. Woo-sik stared at his phone, at the call that wouldn't connect. I pushed her away. Told her she was the problem. If she runs, if she hides. If she gets hurt because I was too blind to see the truth. The thought was unbearable. Somewhere in Seoul, Jae was alone, hunted, and believing she was the villain in everyone's story. And Woo-sik, who'd sworn to protect her, had become the one who hurt her most. Woo-sik had been searching for 36 hours when he finally found her. 36 hours of tearing through Seoul like a man possessed, calling in every favor, threatening every contact, following every lead that might tell him where Jae had gone. His men had searched hospitals, shelters, train stations. Do-hyun had hacked into every CCTV camera in a 5-mile radius of the estate. Nothing. It was Ha-eun who finally found the clue, a single transaction from Jae's nearly empty bank account. 20,000 won withdrawn from an ATM in Itaewon, near the old shipping district. The same district where her father had last been seen alive 10 years ago. She went looking for answers. Woo-sik realized with growing dread. She went looking for her father. He drove himself this time, alone despite Do-hyun's protests. The streets near the shipping yards were industrial, abandoned. The kind of place where screams went unheard and bodies went unfound. Rain had started again, turning the cracked pavement slick and treacherous. The warehouse was easy to spot. The only building with lights on, with cars parked outside. Expensive cars. The kind that belonged to the Jade Serpent Syndicate, the very gang that had been sending Jae threats. Woo-sik's blood turned to ice. He approached on foot, his gun drawn, every sense on high alert. Through a grimy window, he saw them. Jae was tied to a chair in the center of the warehouse, her face bruised, blood trickling from her split lip. 3 men surrounded her, and the one speaking, the Jade Serpent's second in command, a snake named Choi Minho, was holding a knife to her throat. "Last time, Park Jae. Where did your father hide the original ledger?" The one that proves the Black Phoenix boss murdered him. I don't know. Ji's voice was hoarse, broken. I've told you 100 times, I don't know. Then you're no use to us. The knife pressed harder, drawing blood. Woo-sik didn't think. He kicked the door open, his gun trained on Minho's head. Let her go. Every head turned. Ji's eyes widened, and Woo-sik saw something flash across her face. Hope, disbelief, and underneath it all, the hurt he'd put there. Minho laughed, but there was nervousness in it. Jang Woo-sik. Right on time. Your girlfriend here was just about to tell us where. She's not my girlfriend. Woo-sik's voice was steady, even as his heart tried to break through his ribs. She's the woman I love, and you're going to let her go. Now. Or what? You shoot me. My men shoot you both. Not exactly a winning strategy. Then take me instead. Woo-sik lowered his gun slowly, raising his hands. I'm the one you really want, aren't I? The head of the Black Phoenix Syndicate. Take me. But let her go. Woo-sik, no. Ji struggled against her bonds. Don't, they'll kill you. Better me than you. He took a step forward, his eyes never leaving Minho's. She doesn't know anything. She never did. Her father was innocent. I have the proof. My father framed him, murdered him. Ji has spent 10 years running from a crime she didn't commit, from a legacy that was a lie. His voice cracked. And I accused her of the same betrayal. I pushed her away when she needed me most. So if someone has to pay for all the sins of our fathers, let it be me. Minho studied him, calculating. Touching. But I think I'll keep you both. He nodded to his men. They moved toward Woo-sik. Everything happened at once. Woo-sik's backup, because despite his orders, Do-hyun had followed him anyway, crashed through the side entrance. Gunfire erupted. Minho dragged Jae backward, using her as a shield, his knife still at her throat. Everyone stop or she dies. The shooting ceased. Woo-sik stood frozen, his gun raised but useless with Jae in the line of fire. Let her go, Minho, he said quietly. This is between our families. She's innocent. No one's innocent in our world. Minho's smile was poison. You taught me that. The knife began to move. Woo-sik fired. Not at Minho. He couldn't risk hitting Jae. He shot the light bulb directly above them, plunging that section of the warehouse into darkness. In the chaos of broken glass and sudden shadow, Jae threw her weight backward, slamming her head into Minho's face. He stumbled. His grip loosened. Jae tore free just as Woo-sik reached her, his body covering hers as more shots rang out. Something hot and sharp tore through his shoulder, spinning him around. But he kept his body between Jae and the gunfire. Stay down, he gasped, his blood soaking into her shirt. You're hit. Jae's hands frantically searched his body, finding the wound. Oh God, I'm fine. I'm fine as long as you're. More gunfire. But this time, it was Do-hyun and his team, systematically taking down Minho's men. Within minutes, it was over. Minho himself lay unconscious, disarmed, bleeding from a head wound. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. We need to move, Do-hyun called out. Boss, we need to. But Woo-sik wasn't listening. He was staring at Jae, at her torn clothes and bruised face, and the tears streaming down her cheeks. At the woman he'd failed, accused, and nearly lost forever. I'm sorry, he whispered. Jae, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. Should have trusted you. Should have. Stop. Her hands cupped his face, and despite everything, her touch was gentle. You came for me. You offered yourself. You. Her voice broke. You said you loved me. I do. The words came easier than breathing. I love you. I think I started loving you the moment you burst through those cathedral doors, soaking wet and fearless and completely insane. You walked into my life like a storm, and I tried to tell myself it was pretend, that it was strategy, but the truth is... He pressed his forehead to hers, heedless of the blood, the sirens, the chaos around them. You became my home. The only real thing in a world built on lies. You became mine too, Jae whispered. Even when I was terrified. Even when everything fell apart. You became the place I wanted to run to, not from. Then don't run anymore. His thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away tears mixed with rain and blood. Stay. Choose me. Choose us. Not because you have to, not because of deals or protection or fake relationships, but because you want to. I do want to, she breathed. God help me, I want to. He kissed her then, there in the ruins of a warehouse with police sirens screaming closer, and his blood soaking both their clothes. Kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Like she was the answer to every question he'd never known to ask. When they finally pulled apart, Do-hyun was clearing his throat pointedly. Boss, Police. Now would be good. Woo-sik managed a laugh, wincing as the movement pulled at his wound. Get us out of here, Do-hyun. I have a wedding to plan. 3 months later, Jae stood outside Hanul Cathedral for the second time in her life. But this time, she wasn't soaking wet, wasn't desperate, wasn't running toward disaster. This time, she was walking toward love. The heavy wooden doors stood open, and through them, she could see the cathedral transformed. White flowers everywhere. Not orchids this time, but peonies, her favorites, though she'd never told Woo-sik that. He'd figured it out anyway. The way he figured out everything about her. Ha-eun appeared beside her, radiant in a pale pink bridesmaid dress, her smile bright enough to rival the sun. Ready? She asked, squeezing Ji's hand. Jae looked down at her wedding dress. Simple, elegant, nothing like the elaborate gowns society weddings demanded. She'd chosen it herself. Chosen everything herself, because this wedding wasn't for show or strategy or protection. This wedding was real. I'm ready. They walked down the aisle together, and this time when every head turned, Ji didn't flinch. She saw Do-hyun standing in the front row, his scarred face softened with something that might have been approval. Saw former adversaries who'd become allies. Saw Min-jun, safely recovered 2 months ago from a rival gang safe house, thanks to Woo-sik's relentless searching, grinning like an idiot and definitely crying. And at the altar, beneath an arch of peonies and starlight, stood Woo-sik. He wore a simple black suit, his tattoos visible at collar and cuffs. The word sinner across his eyebrow a permanent reminder of the life he'd lived. But his eyes held only warmth, only love, only a future that neither of them had dared to dream of. When Ji reached him, he took her hands, and she could feel them trembling slightly. You came, he whispered, so only she could hear. I'll always come back to you, she whispered back. Even if I have to crash a few more weddings to do it. His laugh was soft, genuine. The sound of a man who'd found redemption in the most unexpected place. The ceremony was short. Neither of them had patience for lengthy traditions. When the officiant finally said, You may kiss your bride, Woo-sik pulled Ji close and kissed her like he'd never let her go. The cathedral erupted in applause. Later, during the reception, when it came time for introductions, Woo-sik stood with his arm around Ji's waist and faced the gathered crowd. Family, allies, even former enemies who'd come to witness this impossible union. This is Ji Park, he said, his voice carrying through the hall with the same authority that commanded respect in boardrooms and backrooms. Some of you remember when she burst through those doors 3 months ago, desperate and drenched, and at the wrong wedding entirely. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Ji felt her cheeks heat, but Woo-sik squeezed her waist reassuringly. I told her that day that she was at the wrong wedding, but she was marrying me instead. I thought it was a joke, a strategy, a way to protect her while I figured out who was trying to destroy us both. His expression softened as he looked down at her. But the truth is, she wasn't at the wrong wedding. She was exactly where she was meant to be. Finding me. Saving me. He turned back to the crowd, and Jae saw tears shining in his eyes. This is my wife, Woo-sik continued, his voice thick with emotion. My light in a world that taught me only darkness. The reason I survived. The reason I want to be better. The woman who crashed the wrong wedding and walked into the only life I want. Jae reached up, brushing away a tear that had escaped down his cheek, not caring that hundreds of people were watching. I love you, she mouthed. I love you, he mouthed back. And in that moment, surrounded by the chaos and beauty of a life neither had planned, Ji Park finally understood what home meant. It wasn't a place. Wasn't safety or invisibility or staying small enough to avoid notice. Home was the person who saw you, really saw you, and chose you anyway. Home was the man who'd once been a stranger at an altar, who'd become her protector, her partner, her everything. Home was Jang Woo-sik, and she'd crash 1,000 weddings if it meant finding her way back to him.